I keep rambling on and on about that. Yeah, we'll try this again. Before they turn in the project. I know I paused on that one. I just totally lost everything in my head. Let's say you have two people, they have the exact same project they need to accomplish. For all intents and purposes, everything's the same. The requirements, timeline, everything. The first one has a hard time starting the project. That's because they're always preparing to start. They have to have everything in perfect order before they actually start that project. The second one concentrates more on the details. Every detail needs to be in its place before the project's turned in. The first one concentrates too much on preparing that they actually miss the deadline. The second one concentrates way too much on the small details and they miss the deadline as well. Question, which one's the perfectionist? I would have said number 2 as well. Number 1 sounds more like a procrastinator, but they're actually both perfectionists. And yes, both sides of this situation affect people with ADHD. So we need to talk about ADHD and perfectionism and how they kind of relate to each other. Because it sounds really awkward to use ADHD and perfectionism in the same sentence, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. But it will here in a minute. How's everybody doing? My name is Steve. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm so happy you guys are here because I need some help. I'm actually stuck in one of these situations right now, and I want your feedback. Let me know if you guys could relate to anything I'm saying about perfectionism and ADHD. See, I actually thought I was in the all or nothing or the black and white type of thinking. So I went online and started doing some reading to try and get myself out of that. And then I come across a few articles about ADHD and perfectionism. More specifically, front end and back end perfectionism.
And you're like, guess which type he is?
Which type do you think I am?
Perfectionist.
Well, yes, both of them are actually perfectionists. Which type? The front end or the back end?
Front end.
Yeah, I think I'm the front end. And that makes a lot more sense than the all or nothing thinking, in a way, because all or nothing does have something to do with the front end portion of it. But yeah, it makes a lot more sense. Front end perfectionism is more about the preparation. It's the first person. They have to have everything in order. They have to meet all these conditions before they could actually start the project. And those conditions could be kind of small, like, if I only had this one item, it'll make the task easier and I'll be able to complete it. Or I got a late start today, so I might as well start it tomorrow. There's a lot of different ways we talk ourselves into preparing to start the project, and a lot of times it does seem like we're procrastinating, but a lot of times we actually think that we're good enough to do this project or that we're capable and we're going to do well on the project. It's just that we have trust issues with ourselves, especially when it comes to timelines and so forth, that we prepare so much so that we hopefully aren't late on the project. The problem is we also have time blindness. So a lot of times we're preparing way too much and we don't realize how much time we're actually preparing. And that's the stage I'm actually in now when it comes to posting videos. I haven't posted videos in quite some time. Now, it started with being a little overwhelmed. Baseball season started, I coach, my kids are in baseball. It's kind of a hectic time. So hitting record, I didn't find the time for it. However, we went on vacation a few weeks ago, and we get back, and now I'm trying to get back in the swing of things. I want to record. However, I got a lot of conditions that need to be met before I actually start. Start with the background in my studio. I need to clean it. It was a mess. So I started cleaning it, and then I realized there's a better way to mount the camera, but I need a few clamps to do that. So now I got to order those clamps and wait till they get here and so forth. And then I realized I don't like the lighting, so I try to adjust the lighting. All these conditions needed to be met before I actually hit record. What I found about this, especially after reading these articles, is it usually starts with one condition. I have one condition, and that was cleaning up my studio. And then that led into another condition and led into another one and another one. And next thing you know, I have an infinite amount of conditions that need to be met before I actually hit record. And that's the problem with front end perfectionism. Back end perfectionism is actually what I thought perfectionism is more like. Everything needs to be in a spot. Everything needs to be perfect. Every timeline needs to be hit. Everything needs to be downright perfect and flawless. And yes, that is what back-end perfectionism is more like. However, people with ADHD have to deal with that as well. For example, I deal with it all the time at work. I'm in charge of the Excel spreadsheet at my job. I am good at the formulas and the bar charts and so forth. And I designed a spreadsheet that allows us to enter the data and it spits out the results. But then we got to take those results and present it at the quarterly meetings. Now the problem is every quarterly meeting, or at least a lot of them, I get bogged down with the small details. I'm trying to make the formula just that much better. I'm trying to make the color of the charts all that much better. I'm trying to make the whole design easier on the eyes and easier to follow. I'm always getting stuck with one of the or two of those details that by the time the quarterly meeting comes around, I didn't have time to actually enter the data. So I got to do one of two things: present without a visual aid, or I got to present with all these numbers at the top of my head, which you know how that goes. It didn't go really well. I'm still kind of traumatized by that. That's back in perfectionism, and we deal with that a lot, or at least I do. I can tell you that. But I'm actually more of a front-end perfectionist, to be perfectly honest, but I do have the back-end moments here and there. Now the question is how do we get out of this perfectionism? Or at least once we notice that we're in this perfectionism state, how do we get out of it? And there's a couple of things that I definitely want to try because it makes a lot of sense. However, I know it's easier said than done. The first is, especially when it comes to the front end portion, I got to remind myself there is no perfect condition. There is absolutely no perfect condition. You could even take the weather. It's nice outside. I could go out and play catch with my son, but by noon it gets hot, I get sunburned. It's not a perfect condition. So I got to remind myself there is no perfect conditions. But it also kind of relates to number two. I got to define what's good enough, especially in the front end. What's good enough? What is the one condition that will be good enough for me to hit record? And that condition was the background. I cleaned up the background. Granted, a lot of that stuff ended up behind the camera, so you guys don't see it. Doesn't matter. But I cleaned up the background enough that I could hit record. And that was my condition. That was good enough. When it comes to the back end, the only question I'm going to ask myself is, are all the requirements met for this project? If all the requirements are met, the project's good, it's done, I'm going to turn it in. Because I also know in my head, even though I don't feel it sometimes, I know in my head that my vision of perfectionism or a perfect project is not my boss's image of a perfect project. My boss's image of a perfect project is that all requirements are met, it's done, and it does its job. That's all that needs to be done. All the little things that I get caught up with, it doesn't matter to them. It matters to me. So I gotta just make sure that all requirements are met, and once that happens, I'm turning it in. Well, I gotta go to a photo shoot. That's what this is about. I gotta take all this gear, put it in my bag, and head on out and take some photos. Probably gonna add a few more pieces of gear. Anyway, if you got something out of the video and you like the video, hit the like button. It definitely helps me out. And if you relate to anything I said about ADHD and perfectionism, let me know in the comments. I definitely want to know your story because I kind of want to feel like I'm not alone. I know I'm not, but I want to feel like I'm not alone. So let me know what your experiences are, and let me know if you're a front end or a back end perfectionist. And with that said, I hope you guys have a good week. I'll see you next time.